Welcome to this explainer. I am absolutely thrilled you're here today because we are unpacking something really fascinating. Think about this for a second. What if the thing keeping you financially stuck isn't a lack of income? What if it's not a lack of effort or intelligence or grit? What if instead it's a system that's so incredibly well designed that even smart, highly disciplined people walk straight into it year after year without ever even seeing the walls? Well, today, we're shining a giant spotlight on exactly that, the silent trap keeping the middle class poor forever.
Okay, let's just dive right into this. If you are sitting there right now feeling a little financially anxious, I want to validate that feeling for you immediately. We live in one of the wealthiest economies in human history, yet most working adults are literally one modest emergency away from real trouble. And look, it is not because you're lazy or careless. The reality is, the entire structure of modern financial life was quietly rebuilt over the last 50 years, and, well, almost nobody sent out a memo. We're going to break down exactly how that happened.
And that brings us to a frankly shocking statistic: $400. Yep, that's it. According to the Federal Reserve's own household survey, roughly a third of American adults could not cover a sudden $400 expense using cash or its equivalent. And we're not talking about a catastrophic medical crisis or sudden job loss here. We're talking about needing a set of new brake pads or a blown water heater, an amount that for a massive share of the workforce is enough to trigger a completely devastating debt spiral.
Which leads us perfectly into Section 1, the salary illusion, and why a steady paycheck feels like a false sense of safety. You know, even with that extreme financial fragility we just talked about, most of these households will still describe themselves as doing fine. Why is that? Well, because a steady paycheck creates this incredibly convincing but false sensation of control. But think about it. A paycheck is basically like a subscription service for your life. You have to physically show up for it every single day to renew it. It requires continuous, exhausting effort. An asset, on the other hand, that produces value on its own even when you stop showing up. That paycheck you're relying on, it's really just an illusion of safety.
To understand how we ended up relying so heavily on this illusion, let's move to Section 2, the broken financial contract, and the widening gap between effort and reward.
For most of the 20th century, the middle class basically operated on a really simple, unspoken contract. You show up, you work hard, you get steady raises, and eventually you retire comfortably. And honestly, that worked. It worked smoothly because pay and productivity actually moved together. But then, right around the late 1970s, that relationship quietly fractured, and it left us with this constantly widening gap between the effort we put in and the rewards we get out.
This fracture is just staggering when you really look at the numbers. Since 1979, productivity in the United States grew by roughly 81%. Workers kept getting better, faster, and more efficient at their jobs, and the economy kept getting richer. But over that exact same period, typical hourly pay grew by less than 30%. Paychecks simply stopped keeping pace. So, if you've been feeling like you are working harder than ever, but somehow still falling behind, I promise you, it isn't your imagination. It is just mathematical reality.
Now, layer inflation on top of that gap, and the math gets even more brutal. In a recent nationwide survey, 80% of households, that's 8 in 10 people, said they've had to change their spending habits in response to rising prices. And they aren't just doing it temporarily either. It's become a permanent recalibration of what they even consider normal. 3 in 5 adults actually feel rising prices have made their financial life permanently worse. Inflation is just quietly eating away whatever ground you thought you were gaining. But it's not just macroeconomics keeping people stuck. Let's shift our focus to the micro level for Section 3, the invisible debt structure, and how perfectly reasonable choices become a trap.
Here is the real kicker. This invisible trap, it isn't built from reckless spending or wild shopping sprees. Not at all. It's built from completely ordinary, reasonable commitments. A mortgage or rent payment, a car loan, because, hey, in most places you need a car just to get to work. Credit card balances from when your income dipped for a month. Student loans for a degree you were told would give you security. And, of course, all those small, quiet, recurring digital subscriptions. When you stack all of these up, you realize how these supposedly smart, necessary decisions are quietly consuming your future before a single discretionary dollar is even spent.
Now, you might be wondering, if these are just basic math problems, why don't financially educated people just route around the trap? Well, that brings us to Section 4, the psychology of spending, and why even smart people fail.
To really get this, we have to move away from the spreadsheets and look at our own brains, specifically the work of evolutionary psychology and behavioral economists like Daniel Kahneman and Richard Thaler.
They talk about this thing called present bias. It's our ancient brain's tendency to consistently overvalue a small reward that's available right now compared to a much larger reward we have to wait for. And modern commerce? Oh, it absolutely weaponizes this. Every seamless digital checkout flow, every one-click buy button, every countdown timer on a flash sale, it is all brilliantly engineered to make you prioritize immediate action over your long-term goals.
Then we add Kahneman's concept of loss aversion to the mix. This is a fascinating psychological asymmetry where the pain of losing money registers roughly twice as strongly in our brains as the pleasure of gaining that exact same amount. This is exactly why so many people avoid investing entirely. Watching a visible dip in the stock market feels catastrophic, so people just hold on to cash instead, thinking it's safer. But here's the catch. Sitting in cash doesn't actually avoid risk. It just trades a visible risk for the guaranteed silent risk of inflation eating away your money over time.
And of course, we also have to navigate the social element of all this, the identity trap. Let's be honest, a newer car or a fully renovated kitchen rarely exists just for pure function. They operate as social signals. As humans, we're hardwired for social comparison. It's an ancient cognitive shortcut we use for gauging status. But in our modern hyper-visible digital culture, we end up spending money to narrow a status gap that can literally never fully close simply because someone, somewhere on your feed, always appears to be doing better.
Let's ground all of this theory into a practical thought experiment. Moving on to Section 5, 2 households, 2 futures, and how these forces play out over a decade.
Okay, picture 2 identical households starting in the exact same place with the exact same income. Household 1, they treat every single raise as permission to upgrade. A slightly better car, slightly nicer dinners out. Fast forward 10 years, they have an incredibly impressive-looking life, hugely high fixed costs, and 0 savings left over. Now look at household 2. They maintain a pretty modest visible life, but they take a portion of every raise and quietly automate their investments in the background. 10 years later, they have a fairly unremarkable-looking life, but they're sitting on top of real, growing net worth. They didn't do anything extraordinary. They just automated a decision that household 1 kept struggling to make every single month.
And that quiet automation, that is what unlocks the absolute magic of compounding. Like investor Warren Buffett has been pointing out for decades, compounding is a mechanism that rewards patience over income. It is definitely not exciting to watch, but when you leave it uninterrupted over enough years, it becomes literally the most powerful force in personal finance. Long-term wealth isn't primarily built by how much money you earn, but by how much you consistently keep, invest, and just leave alone.
So how do we actually unmask this invisible enemy and finally escape the system? Let's pivot to our final section, Section 6, Building True Wealth and Navigating the Trap to Find Actual Security.
All right, here are the specific mindset shifts you need to diverge from the middle-class norm. Step 1, prioritize acquiring income-generating assets over liabilities. Step 2, start investing early because time in the market consistently outweighs the size of your actual contributions. Step 3, diversify into multiple income streams so a single job loss doesn't completely ruin you. And step 4, treat financial literacy as an ongoing skill. You know, our educational system has this massive systemic blind spot. It spends a decade teaching us how to earn an income, but spends almost 0 time teaching us how to actually manage or grow one. You really have to take that learning into your own hands.
There's this beautiful, powerful quote from financial writer Morgan Housel that perfectly defines this entirely different orientation. He says, "Real wealth is the things not seen. Real wealth is the skipped upgrade. It's the car you decided to keep for a few extra years. It is the unflashy, totally ordinary-looking life that is quietly building substantial, life-changing value right underneath the surface."
Which leaves us with this final, genuinely provocative question to ask ourselves. Are you mistaking the appearance of financial security for the reality of it? Ultimately, the trap we're talking about isn't just debt or a rigged economy. It's the culturally reinforced belief that looking secure and actually being secure are the same thing, because they rarely are. The households that eventually break free are the ones who finally stop mistaking one for the other. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep learning, stay focused, and start building what can't be seen.